Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our book buzz. We have a lot of presenters to go through today, and we are so excited to share all of our upcoming books with you. So, with that, we are going to kick it off with Melissa from Hachette. Go ahead, Melissa.
All right. Hey, Melissa Nicholas from Hachette Book Group. And thanks, Emily, for organizing this. It's much appreciated. I'm going to get started with sex, four-letter words, and ghosts. Next slide, please. So the apology. Let's address the promise of ghosts. In South Korea, a 105-year-old woman receives a letter. 10 days later, she has been thrust into the afterlife, fighting to head off a curse that will otherwise devastate generations to come. It's part ghost story, part family epic. It's an incisive tale of sisterhood and diaspora, reaching back to the days of Japanese colonialism and the Korean War, and told through the singular voice of a defiant, funny, unforgettable centenarian. Plus, Jin Min, the author, loves her Westchester libraries, and library reads votes are due July 1st, so vote today. Next slide, please. Sing a Black Girls Song. This is a new retrospective collection of Shange's unpublished and never before seen poems, essays, and plays from the life of this seminal Black feminist writer. In these pages, we meet young Shange, learn the moments that inspired for colored girls who have considered suicide, when the rainbow is enough. And Princeton University scholar Imani Perry is the editor of Sing a Black Girls Song and lends such a deft hand to this posthumous collection. You can read this from NetGalley and Edelweiss today. Next slide. Leslie fucking Jones. Leslie opens up for the first time about how she faltered and triumphed on the road to success, and in doing so encourages readers to let go of fear and self-doubt. Leslie fucking Jones is a love letter to regular people just trying to make it day to day, and proof that if you fight for yourself, you can live a bigger life than you ever imagined, and you too can be undeniable. Plus, just so you know, I'm working on a plan for all of us to go to the Olympics with Leslie. Next slide. Down the hill, just over 6 years ago, 2 young women were murdered while hiking in Indiana. I'm not saying it's because they're hiking, you guys, but take away what you will. Susan Hendricks was one of the first reporters to cover the case. She felt something was deeply wrong with how the case was handled, and she digs deeper into the mystery, exploring the family's enduring resilience and advocacy. So this sets up to be, shows the small town in middle America that's been haunted by an unfathomable act of violence. It's about the way families and communities cope with grief and move forward after tragedy. It's about the limitations of local law enforcement and the rise of technology in helping to solve cases in new ways. And it's about compassion, connection, and empathy on a very real human level. Next slide. Oh, Shield Maiden, 14 words: romantic, mythological, fantasy, feminist Beowulf retelling starring a disabled shield maiden. Circe meets Vikings. Next slide. Ooh, Carrie has been writing best-selling YA for years. Her series includes Stalking Jack the Ripper and Kingdom of the Wicked. Her signature voice is a blend of mystery, fantasy, and romance. On the romance side, her enthusiastic fan base has begged for more romance, more spice. You get it? Which brings us to Throne of the Fallen, Carrie's first adult book. This is a standalone set in her Kingdom of the Wicked world, and expect Carrie's fans to be eagerly waiting, and new fans can join in. Next slide. The Feminist Killjoy Handbook. Sarah Ahmed turns on its head one of the accusations most aimed at feminists, that in pointing out social problems, they kill other people's joy. Building on over 15 years of work in feminist and queer studies, Ahmed shows how being a feminist killjoy offers an invaluable strategy for navigating our unjust world and ultimately transforming it. Sarah is going to help us get in the way. For readers of Hood Feminism and a Feminist Manifesto and 15 suggestions. Next slide. Stars in Your Eyes. Kaysen is an accomplished award-winning author who turns their writing gift to this beautiful, sensitive, sweet romance about 2 queer Black men overcoming past trauma. A fake dating trope set in Hollywood. A reading group guide will be available on Pump Date for book club discussions. Next slide. Thanks for listening. Contact info is here. Many of these are available for digital reading via NetGalley and Edelweiss. Some even available in printed form. And if ALA is your scene, please visit Annie and me at booth 3116. We are bringing a trillion galleys. And in the meantime, wishing you all a charming week. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Shell from Independent Publishers Group, IPG, and I've got some great titles to show you. So next slide. The first one is called Out at the Plate, the Dot Wilkinson story by Lynn Ames. Dot Wilkinson was the greatest women's softball catchers of all time and was the inspiration for Gina Davis's character in A League of Their Own. And this is her true life story. You'll see this nice quote here from Billie Jean King herself, who also comments what a great female catcher she was for softball and what a great athlete and pioneering person in general that she was. And this is her story. And it's not simply that Dot Wilkinson was one of these terrific, amazing athletes of all time and one of the original players from the three-time world champion PBSW Phoenix Ramblers softball teams from 1933 to 1965, nor was it the length of her time here on Earth. She lived just over a century. Although any of these things by itself would be impressive, but the magic of her story is in the details. It's the tale of a childhood spent in poverty, an indomitable, unbreakable spirit, and a determination to be the very best, to play whatever sport she undertook, and the independence to live her personal life on her own terms, and her tremendous success at all of it. She was a true groundbreaker. And this is brought to us by Chicago Review Press, and it's a top shelf title. Next slide. The next title is called When Harry Met Pablo, Truman, Picasso, and the Cold War Politics of Modern Art. Again, another top shelf title from IPG for the season. And this one also brought to us by Chicago Review Press, coming out in October. But Truman and Picasso were contemporaries and were both shaped by and shapers of the great events of the 20th century. The man who painted Guernica and the man who authorized the use of atomic bombs against civilians. But in most ways, they couldn't have been more different. Picasso was a communist, and probably the only thing Harry Truman hated more than communists was modern art. Picasso was an indifferent father, a womanizer, and a millionaire, and Truman was utterly devoted to his family, and despite his fame, far from a rich man. So how did they come to be shaking hands in front of Picasso's studio in the south of France? This is a rigorous history with a heartwarming center. When Harry Met Pablo intertwines the biographies of Truman and Picasso, the history of modern art, and 20th century American politics. But at its core, it is a touching story of two old men who meet for the first time and realize that they actually have more in common and are more alike than they ever imagined. Next slide. The next title is called Nurturing Boys to be Better Men. Gender Equality Starts at Home. And this is from the American Academy of Pediatrics, coming out in October. And again, another top shelf title for us for the season. Pediatrician and mother of four, Dr. Shelley Flay gives parents the tools that they need to start the lifelong process of raising their boys into men who are mentally healthy, empathetic, and committed to gender equality. Dr. Flay provides concrete techniques for parents to push back against cultural stereotypes and toxic masculinity as they nurture their sons. Because kids do as they see, the work of being role models for gender equality starts in the home. Dr. Flay explains developmentally appropriate opportunities for growth and awareness of gender equality at every age and before birth through early childhood. And this conversation starter emphasizes the benefits of gender equality for boys and girls, men and women, and discusses it not only in the context of family, but also the extended family, school, and greater community. Next slide. Our last title is called The Final Witness, a Kennedy Secret Service agent breaks his silence after 60 years by Paul Landis. This is also by Chicago Review Press. And this book's content is actually embargoed until September 18th of 2023. Secret Service agent Paul Landis was in the trail car just behind JFK's limousine on that fateful day. And for the first time, he's detailing what he saw and what he did. He is, as I mentioned, behind the president's limo. As all of this transpired, it stops at Parkland Memorial Hospital. Inside, he's in the trauma room where the president's pronounced dead. He's on Air Force One with the president's casket on the flight back to DC. He's an eyewitness to Lyndon Johnson's taking oath in office. But what he saw is indelibly imprinted on his psyche. He leaves the Secret Service, he resigns, and it isn't until the 50th anniversary that he begins to talk about it. and he reads books about it and the conspiracy theories, and he cannot believe where it all went wrong. So you got to read this one. And that's it for me. But so thanks for listening. You can find all kinds of goodies on our website, and DRC is available on Edelweiss and NetGalley. So thanks for listening.
Hi, everyone. It's Virginia. Hi. Good. It's Virginia Stanley in for Lainey Mays from HarperCollins. Quickly here, scan to RSVP for our book buzz. If you're coming to ALA, we'd love to see you there. Next slide, please. Forged by Blood by Ihibor Okuson. This is a brilliant new voice that brings together, it's an action-packed duology, and then it's inspired by Nigerian mythology. It's got magic and emotion, and it's set in this highly atmospheric and complex world in which a young woman fights to survive a tyrannical society. Having everything stripped away from her, she seeks vengeance for her mother's murder and the spilled blood of her people. This is for fans of books on West African cultures, Black speculative fiction, fans of Nikki Drayden, Marlon James. There's a YA adult crossover appeal here. We're very excited about this book. PW gave it that wonderful starred review, and the book 2 in the duology will be out in 2024. E-galleys are available. The author's coming to ALA, so stop by our booth and say hello. Next. Hi. For the Culture, Clancy Miller. She's the founder of this magazine, For the Culture, a magazine celebrating Black women and femmes in food and wine. This woman has a lot of experience working in the food business. She apprenticed in pastry kitchens at Michelin-starred restaurants and worked for Le Cordon Bleu's recipe development team, many more. She knows her stuff. And this book showcases underrepresented voices and appeals to a unique audience, Black consumers, but also to other women and men interested in food and wine. It's going to be a must-have anthology, and it's really about her finding her way through trial and error. But what if she had known the people who she profiles in this book? Extraordinary women, a farmer using Afro-Indigenous methods to restore the land and feed her community. That's Leah Penniman. Or Ashton Berry, an activist and sommelier and mixologist who created radical change in the hospitality industry and beyond. Or Sophia Rowe, a TV host and producer, showcasing the inside stories behind today's food systems. This is a terrific book. Next slide, please. The Manor House by Jillian McMillan. This is a terrific story. She's the international best-selling author of 7 other novels, including What You Knew, The Nanny, and Childhood Sweethearts. Nicole and Tom win the lottery, and their lives change overnight. They move into this custom-built, state-of-the-art glass barn on the stunning grounds of this manor in Gloucestershire. They have everything: cars, hobbies, crazy lifestyle, and then everything goes to hell because Tom is found dead in the swimming pool. She is devastated. Something is amiss. How did he die? You'll have to read the book to find out. Next slide, please. And the last title, Stockholm by Noah Yedlin. This is a first Israeli novel that we've acquired for Harper Via, which is an imprint of Harper. And this is about Avishai, who is up for the Nobel Prize for Economics, but there's just one problem: he is dead. His 4 closest friends agree that the well-earned prize must stay within his grasp, and so they conspire to conceal his corpse until the committee's announcement. The potential of a glorious legacy for their late friend, and by extension, all of them. They all have a hand in this and will benefit from it. It's only 8 days away. What could go wrong? Guess. You've got to read this book and find out. But I will just say one thing. Of course, this is, dark humor and funny, but it's also about and that there's a lot of hope in here, and there's addressing that time in your life. It's for an older generation, but younger people will completely appreciate. This is not just a weekend at Bernie's thing, is what I'm really trying to say here. It's a dark comedy, but it's also got a lot of humor. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. One thing is that it was the first, it's been optioned, like, Olive Kitteridge and A Man Called Ove. It was optioned for the popular Israeli TV series and optioned by Amazon Studios. So I hope you enjoy that book and the others as well. And I hope to see you at ALA if you're coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Virginia, and hello to everyone joining us here today. Happy Monday. My name is Chris Vicari of Union Square and Company, and these are the books. One title on the next slide, publishing later this month, is Truly Darkly Deeply, a different take on the usual serial killer novel about a young girl named Sophie, who upon visiting the man she helped put behind bars for life, this man who once dated her mother, who she once loved like a father. Now, 20 years after he went to prison, she starts to wonder if he was actually a killer. Truly Darkly Deeply by Victoria Selman, out in 2 weeks. Next slide, please. In September, we have The Dance of the Dolls, the story of Olivia and Clara, identical twin ballerinas rehearsing for the comic ballet Coppelia at a recently opened theater. Now, while they're different in many ways, they're not rivals. They do love each other, but eventually one man's love means that one of the sisters will be in danger, and it's their support for each other that will matter most of all, as the story of Coppelia and the dancing doll threatens to become a dark, sinister reality in this wonderful debut by author Lucy Ashe. Next slide, please. The Temple of Fortuna. It's book 3 in the Wolf Den trilogy by Elodie Harper. Our lead character, Amara's journey, has taken her from a slave in Pompey's Wolf Den to a high-powered courtesan in Rome, but her story is not over yet. And it is the year AD 79, and mighty Mount Vesuvius is about to arrive. As we move into the fall and winter months on the next slide, we continue in fiction with In the Dark, I See You by Malika Narayanan. It takes place in an elite suburb in New York called Sleepy Point, where it's anything but sleepy. A young woman named Sarah is found murdered in her home. The person who discovers the body is her neighbor, Audrey. Now, a little bit about Audrey. She moved to this neighborhood only for 2 reasons. One was a new start after a trauma left her blind. And number 2, a chance to spy on her now deceased neighbor. Audrey eventually moves from witness to suspect, as thanks to alternating timelines, we find out she was overheard having an explosive argument with Sarah hours before she was found dead. The deeper the police dive, the more secrets come alive about one woman's past and a witness who may or may not be lying. This is for fans of The Silent Patient or podcast fans of Baking a Murder. Next slide is Enchanted Hill by Emily Bain Murphy. You can take a trip back in time to 1930s Prohibition era Hollywood. We meet an aspiring private investigator named Cora, who's posing as a maid at the legendary estate of a Hollywood magnate named Truman Bird. Cora is very good at her job. She was trained by her father, after all, former prison guard, and she's this close to getting the evidence she needs for a high-profile client. But that's when she recognizes a man at the estate named Jack Yates, a man also hiding his identity. The last time she saw him, let's just say it changed the course of her life. It still haunts her more than a decade later, but this time they have to behave because a single misstep could cause both of their secret identities to come crashing down in a tale of puzzles, parties, champagne wishes, and caviar dreams, as well as a sinister history that the rich and powerful will do anything to keep concealed. Next slide, please. Moving into nonfiction, we will publish What's Left Unsaid by Melissa DeRosa. She served as communications director, chief of staff, and secretary to former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. With honesty and resilience, she will talk about being in the epicenter of the COVID crisis in New York City, which came with death threats. She'll also talk about marriage, battles with infertility, never before told stories behind the later fall of the governor in the Me Too scandal that rocked politics. Think for readers of Huma Abedin's Both And or Katie Tour's Rough Draft. And now time on the next slide for some deliciousness. When Dan Pelosi, known on social at Grossi Pelosi, announced several weeks ago on Instagram that we would publish his debut cookbook called Let's Eat, it hit the #1 spot on Amazon's movers and shakers list. You go, Dan. This debut is a warm hug of home cooking, full of living, laughing, and loving as any cookbook could be, with 101 of his nearest and dearest recipes, including the ultimate big Italian sandwich. OMG, Let's Eat publishes in September. And now that you have eaten a big meal, it's time for dessert. On the next slide, bake your heart out with Dan Langan in his debut cookbook. Dan shares 100 recipes for game-changing versions of familiar classics, plus unique creations and pro secrets that make his bakes better. He's a former Cake Wars winner. He's a regular on Good Morning America, and he's been baking his heart out since he was 5 years old. He'll take anyone's skills and make them as enticing as the treats themselves, like these next slides showing gingerbread cutouts. Don't they look tasty? Next slide, please, my friends. Those are the books, and that's the way it is on June 12th, 2023. Thank you for joining us here today. Look for Union Square and Company at the ALA Annual Conference in June. And here is our next presenter.
Hi there, I'm Becca Mills, School and Library Marketing Coordinator for Disney Publishing, and I'm excited to share some of our upcoming titles. Next slide, please. First, we're going to start off with a few great beach reads we have coming out this August. Kiss the Girl is the third book in the best-selling Meant to Be series, modern-day rom-com reimaginings of some of our favorite stories. This is the story of Ariel, one of the most famous singers in the world, who spontaneously heads out on the road with Eric, the dreamy lead singer of an up-and-coming band who has no idea who she really is. In Silicon Hearts, the youngest and brightest of the tech world are invited to work for one of the most prestigious companies in Silicon Valley. But when they discover that only a precious few will be offered full-time jobs, reckless ambition and cutthroat competition eclipse their burgeoning friendships and romances. The two debut authors are tech industry pros, and they've used their experience to craft an unflinching look at what is really like to work in Silicon Valley. Next slide, please. In the Blue Zone Secrets for Living Longer, National Geographic explorer and best-selling author Dan Buettner returns to the blue zones, places around the world where higher percentages of people enjoy remarkably long, full lives. He checks in on these super agers living in these zones and interprets the not-so-secret sauce that has powered as many as 10 additional years of healthy living in these regions. Next slide. Next up, I want to quickly share some new editions of our popular Nat Geo travel guides. The Walking Guide series, which are all based on the personal and professional expertise of National Geographic travel writers, presents must-do neighborhood itineraries, insider tips for visiting recommended sites, and indispensable information for the most enjoyable urban adventure imaginable. Next slide. The National Geographic Traveler Guidebooks are focused on experiential travel. Each book provides inspiring photography, insider tips, and expert advice for a more authentic, enriching experience of the destination. These books serve a readership of active, discerning travelers and supply information, historical context, and cultural interpretation not available on the internet. Next slide. No one can make the mysteries of the universe more comprehensible and fun than Neil deGrasse Tyson. To Infinity and Beyond, illustrated with vivid photographs and art, lets readers travel with him through space and time, starting with the Big Bang and voyaging to the far reaches of the universe and beyond. Along the way, science greets pop culture as Tyson explains the triumphs and bloopers in Hollywood's blockbusters. The book is linked to a mini-series of his acclaimed Star Talk podcast, which has 3 million downloads per month. So we expect there will be a lot of interest. Next slide. Midnight Showing is the sequel to last fall's Malice House by best-selling author Megan Shepherd. Discovering her father's strange final manuscript has brought only mayhem and darkness to Haven Marbury's life. Now both hunter and prey, Haven travels far and wide to discover the contours of her family's curse and escape the worst of her late father's creations. Drawn to the desert scrublands and Hollywood mansions of California, Haven discovers a string of murders that points directly to members of her family. And when the trail of death ends at a studio from the golden age of horror films, reality and fiction become the strangest of bedfellows indeed. Next slide. In her 30 years working as a music industry executive at Island Def Jam and Jive Records, Grace Harry has lived her many creative lives at the intersection of music, art, and the passionate pursuit of joy, a long forgotten but vital birthright. Many of us have no idea what joy truly is, and capturing it is often easier said than done. In The Joy Strategist, Grace takes readers on a journey to explore all dimensions of joy, how we find it, how we can rediscover it, and how we can incorporate it in our daily lives. Next slide. And here are a few fun titles you don't want to miss. Look Out for the Little Guy is the in-movie memoir by Scott Lang, also known as Ant-Man, that he's written and shared with the world, as seen on screen in the new Marvel Studios film Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But now we're going super meta and bringing this movie prop to life as a real book. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the longest running live action series in American television history with 18 seasons and counting. This cookbook is filled with over 45 recipes straight from the show, plus fun quotes, jokes, and photographs, making it a must-have for every fan. And lastly, the wit and wisdom of the Golden Girls comes alive in Quit Being an Idiot, a collection of short essays that examines many of the issues discussed on the hit TV show and how Dorothy, Blanche, Rose, and Sophia handled them, written by #1 New York Times bestselling author Rob Perlman. That's it for me. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. Be sure to find us online and look for galleys on NetGalley and Edelweiss. We'll hope to see you at ALA. We're at booth 3420. And of course, feel free to reach out for any questions. Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, Anastasia Scott, sales manager at Chronicle Books here, and I've got 5 titles to share with you today. So first up, I always like to start with cookbooks, starting with, next slide please, yep, Chili Crisp, 50 plus recipes to satisfy your spicy, crunchy, garlicky cravings by the internet sensation, James Park. You can flip through the next 2 slides that will show some of the tasty recipes included in the book. So if you already love Chili Crisp, this book is for you. If you're new to it, get ready to put Chili Crisp on everything. But wherever you're at in your spicy life journey, this is a celebration of the classic Chinese condiment that has seen an incredible spike in popularity the last few years, with many people taking a stab at making homemade chili crisp as a pandemic hobby. In addition to making your own chili crisp, this cookbook includes dozens of recipes spanning breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even dessert that will be elevated with a spicy crunch. It's out August 29th. Next slide, we have Every Season is Soup Season, 85 plus super adaptable recipes to batch, share, reinvent, and enjoy, written by the author of the best-selling cookbook, Platters and Boards. So you can flip through the next 2 slides again with some of the recipes, but here's the thing, soup is the perfect food. It's easy, it's cheap, it's filling, it's healthy, great for batching, and as this must-have cookbook shows, it's delicious in all seasons and on all occasions. So whether you're a newbie who's just exploring the wonderful world of soup or in a soup rut and you need some new recipes for your rotation, this go-to book has it all, out September 19th. Our next title from the Chronicle Prism imprint is The Mini ADHD Coach, Tools and Support to Make Life Easier, a visual guide. This inclusive guide to ADHD explores its diverse types, symptoms, diagnoses, and misconceptions, and shares how to work with your ADHD brain to fully understand yourself, written by someone living and thriving with ADHD. Author Alice Gendron's Instagram account, The Mini ADHD Coach, has over 500,000 followers who relate to her simple illustrated tips that will help readers get things done and live peacefully with ADHD. This is a book for anyone who likes following mental health TikTok or Instagram accounts for that digestible advice, but could maybe benefit from reading about a greater breadth of topics spanning all aspects of life with ADHD. This one publishes on September 26th. Next, we have a fascinating graphic memoir, This Country, Searching for Home in Very Rural America, from New Yorker cartoonist Navid Madavian, who, with his wife, picked up and left their life in San Francisco to follow that millennial dream of buying land and living off the grid in rural Idaho, despite never having fished, gardened, hiked, hunted, or lived in a snowy place. This book is the chronicle of them leaning into the wonders of this new, slower paced life in a beautiful setting, while also confronting the realities of America's political shifts and forging a new life as a Middle Eastern American in a conservative landscape during the Trump presidency. Our country can often feel very divided, and the communities we choose are often described as bubbles. But this beautifully written and unflinchingly honest memoir is forged by someone pushing those boundaries as he confronts the question, do I belong here? Out September 12th. And that one's also just added on Edelweiss, so check out the DRC there. And finally, from our distribution client, Levine Carrito, comes their first novel for adults, The Free People's Village by Sim Kern, environmental journalist and founder of the Trans Rights Readathon. The Free People's Village is an eat the rich work of climate fiction you won't want to put down. In an alternate 2020 timeline, Al Gore won the 2000 election and declared a war on climate change rather than a war on terror. For 20 years, green infrastructure projects have transformed US cities into lush paradises, for the wealthy white neighborhoods at least. And the Bureau of Carbon Regulation levies carbon taxes on every financial transaction. However, in 2020, a racial reckoning still comes to a head when police respond with violence to protests against a new electromagnetic hyperway that will decimate a historically Black neighborhood to provide faster access to a wealthy white suburb. An anti-capitalist occupation takes root and begins to spread across the country. And at the center is our book's protagonist, a young white woman who has moved to the neighborhood under siege and is questioning her place in the movement. This is a novel that explores the challenges of taking a stand, gentrification, and illustrates the danger of social justice movements that are not led by the people being disenfranchised. Out September 12th. And that's it for me. Be sure to check out the Chronicle Books galleys on Edelweiss and on NetGalley, and come visit us at ALA and say hi. We're at booth 2916. And over to Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Coyle-Crivelli from Penguin Random House Library Marketing. Hope you are all doing well today. Next slide. Couple of big announcements before we get to a couple of our exciting titles. We are going to be doing our morning book buzz live at ALA Annual this year. We hope you will join us on Sunday morning at 11:30 a.m. Where we will be doing a preview of all of our really exciting fall titles. And then we have a special opportunity this year for you to stay in the same room and hear from our distribution partners right after. There will be snacks served, and we are looking forward to seeing all of you in Chicago. Next slide. Just a quick little reminder that our new book club brochure is up and ready. You can download it on the tiny URL that you see here. And also we have our archives as well. This is a great resource for your book clubs. There are book club suggestions for adults, young adults, and there's also some Spanish language titles in there as well, and some audio suggestions. So we hope you will check out our new book club brochure. Next slide. Lastly, we just want to let you know we have a couple of really fun new samplers up, our summer sampler and our debut fiction sampler. And our summer reading excerpt sampler is really fun. It will link to our summer reading challenge and entire summer reading campaign that we think is really fun this year because who doesn't love to read wonderful books in the summer? So now on to some exciting titles. Next slide. We have 4 really fun titles to share with you today. First up is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic for fans of Practical Magic and Gilmore Girls. The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic is a debut novel that explores the shields we build around our hearts to retain our own magic. Sadie has always believed that the curse of 4 heartbreaks that accompanies her magic would be worth the price. But when her grandmother is diagnosed with cancer with only weeks to live, and her first heartbreak, Jake, returns to town after a decade, her carefully structured life begins to unravel. Readers who love the magic of the particular sadness of lemon cake, who didn't, and the sense of community found in the very secret society of irregular witches will enjoy this warm, witchy novel. Next up, I'm so excited to introduce a new book from Nathan Hill. We were also huge fans of the Knicks. Wellness sounds so fun. I think you're going to all love it. It's from the New York Times bestselling author, and he's back with a poignant and witty novel about marriage, the often baffling pursuit of health and happiness, and the stories that bind us together. From the gritty 90s Chicago art scene to a suburbia of detox diets and home renovation hysteria, Wellness reimagines the love story with a healthy dose of insight, irony, and heart. And we love this quote from Britt Bennett, the author of The Vanishing Half. It says, "It's a hilarious and moving exploration of a modern marriage that astounds in its breadth and intimacy." We are so excited. And just to note that Nathan will be at ALA and he will be doing a booth signing. Next up, perfect for your nonfiction fans and obviously for all of the many, many fans of The Code Girls, is a new book from Liza Mundy. This is The Secret History of Women at the CIA. And this is going to be a great book for your fans of a woman of no importance and Ben McIntyre's agent, Sonia. Created in the aftermath of World War II, the Central Intelligence Agency relied on women even as it attempted to keep them down. Women sent cables, made dead drops, and maintained the agency's secrets. Despite discrimination, even because of it, women who started as clerks, secretaries, or unpaid spouses rose to become some of the CIA's most shrewd operatives. We are very excited for this book to come out in October. And last up, how fun to end with the new book from Kylie Reed. We're so excited, and just to note, so I don't forget at the very end, that Kylie will also be doing a signing at ALA. And this is from the best-selling author, I'm sure you remember, of Such a Fun Age, and it's a fresh and provocative story about a residential assistant and her messy entanglement with a professor and 3 unruly students. Set in 2017 at the University of Arkansas, Millie Cousins, a senior resident assistant, wants to graduate, get a job, and buy a house. So when Agatha Paul, a visiting professor and writer, offers Millie an easy yet unusual opportunity, she jumps at the chance. But Millie's starry-eyed hustle becomes jeopardized by odd new friends, vengeful dorm pranks, and illicit intrigue. It's a fresh and intimate portrait of desire, consumption, and reckless abandon. Come and Get It is a tension-filled story about money, indiscretion, and bad behavior, and a highly anticipated new novel by acclaimed and award-winning author Kylie Reed. And she can only write this kind of book, and she's so fun. So we're so excited for her to be at ALA and for you to get your hands on this galley. That is all from me. Thank you very much. We will hopefully see many of you in Chicago, but if not, you know, you can always keep in touch with us online at PRH Library. Have a great day, everybody.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Oste, and I'm the Senior Channel Marketing Manager for Harlequin Trade Publishing, or HTP Books. I wanted to start off with just a super quick reminder of titles with the July 1st Library Reads voting deadline. So on this slide, you'll see Big Little Spells and The Witch is Back. These are charming rom-coms for fans of The Ex-Hex and Payback's a Witch. And then we have The Keeper of Hidden Books, which is a heartwarming story inspired by the true story of the Underground Library in World War II Warsaw. And then by the author of The Matzo Ball, Kissing Kosher is about the heirs of two rival Jewish bakeries in Brooklyn, perfect for fans of You've Got Mail. So over to the next slide, we'll start with the title presentation. So here we have The Housekeepers. This was our July Indie Next pick. The Housekeepers by Alex Hay can be best described as Ocean's 8 or Ocean's 11 meets Downton Abbey. The setting is the grandest house in Mayfair, a home that is packed with treasures and glitter, but this house has secrets. And when the respected housekeeper, Mrs. King, is dismissed from her position, she exacts revenge on the house. And she's going to do it on the night of London's grandest ball. So while high society is gathering upstairs, Mrs. King is downstairs with a group of women, robbing the house of every possession and exposing the secrets of the house to everyone. This is the Edwardian heist novel that the world has been waiting for. It's perfect for fans of thriller readers, cozy mysteries, historical fiction, and anyone who devoured The Maid and The Lost Apothecary. Over to the next slide, we have What You're Looking For is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama. This is about an enigmatic librarian in Tokyo. And when people visit her library, she always asks the same question of them. What are you looking for? And she always recommends books that are spot on for the patrons. But she always adds one book that is really unexpected. And that book always ends up changing that person's life forever. And so this novel follows 5 different visitors who have each received these book recommendations and shows how their lives are changed by their visits to the library. So first of all, for librarians, you'll see a bit of yourself in this novel. Secondly, there are real book recommendations in here, many Japanese classics. And thirdly, this really is like the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. You have the quirky cast, the inspirational themes, and not to mention plenty of cats. But this is also a novel about the power of listening and the importance of feeling seen and heard. And the characters are sure to resonate with anyone who's ever felt stuck or frustrated at their stage in life. Next slide, we have Herc by Phoenicia Rogerson. Herc is a queer retelling of the story of Hercules. While this should be the story of Hercules, his 12 labors, his endless adventures, everyone's favorite hero, but it's not really. This is the story of everyone else. Alcmene, Herc's mother, is here, and she has knives everywhere. Hylas, for Herc's first friend, well, actually, there were more than friends. Megara, Princess of Thebes, she'll tell you about the marriage. And all of Herc's friends, his enemies, his wives, children, lovers, rivals, gods, and his victims are all here. Told with humor and heart, Phoenicia's debut is a retelling to end all retellings. It's perfect for the Greek geek in all of us, and for fans of Circe and the Song of Achilles and 1,000 Ships. And then on the next slide, we have Hush Harbor by Eunice Vance. After an unarmed Black teenager is murdered at the hands of the police, protests erupt across the country. And in Bliss City, a resistance group launches a full-scale rebellion by taking control of an abandoned housing project renamed Hush Harbor. We follow 5 characters through the uprising, including an idealistic student, siblings who have conflicting ideological approaches, and even a senior aide in the mayor's office. This is haunting, provocative, heart-pounding, and tender all at once. Hush Harbor presents a high-stakes world grounded on the premise What would you sacrifice in the name of justice? And it asks the question, what might an actual war against white supremacy look like? It's urgent and profound as much as The School for Good Mothers, Exit West, and American War. And Anis Vance will be at ALA, so look out for him signing at our booth 3617 and at multiple events at the show. And then on the last slide, that's it for me. My contact information is here, and be sure to follow us at HQ for Libraries. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, everybody. I am Golda Rademacher from Norton. We are excited to be celebrating our 100th anniversary this year as an independent and employee-owned publisher. Next slide. We're launching a new series this fall called Norton Shorts, which has leading scholars writing eye-opening books that deliver fresh perspectives in under 200 pages. Wild Girls by Taya Miles talks about important women in history from many different backgrounds who found self-understanding in the natural world and became women who changed America. Against Techno-Ableism by Ashley Shue is an Own Voices manifesto that argues that disabled people are the real experts when it comes to what they need from technology. Next slide. Emily Wilson received so much praise for her translation of the Odyssey. Now she has tackled the Iliad. The editors said, if the Odyssey is a journey, the Iliad is an action movie. In Wilson's hands, this thrilling, magical, and often horrifying tale now gallops at a pace befitting its legendary battle scenes. Next slide. Anne Enright is the author of 7 novels, including The Gathering, The Forgotten Waltz, and Actress. She has been awarded the Booker Prize, the Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Fiction, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Irish Book Awards. Her new novel, The Wren, follows 3 generations of women who contend with the legacy of a man beloved by the public, but who abandoned their family. In sharp prose, Anne Enright masterfully braids a family story of longing, betrayal, and hope. Next. So we just announced a new Michael Lewis book a few weeks ago. In Going Infinite, Michael Lewis tells the story of Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX's spectacular collapse. He really dives deep into the story. Michael has been able to do hours of interviews with Bankman-Fried since he's been on house arrest. You can expect to see Michael Lewis on 60 Minutes at the beginning of October, and there will be a lot of other interviews and profiles around the time of publication. Next slide. The world's most famous classicist, Mary Beard, returns with a vivid account of the social and political world of Imperial Rome. Emperor of Rome goes directly to the heart of fantasies about what it was to be Roman, offering an account of Roman history organized thematically to really explore the life of an emperor and all the people surrounding him. Next slide. Hazardous Spirits is coming from Tin House Books. In 1920s Edinburgh, Evelyn Hazard is a young middle-class housewife living the life she's always expected until her husband Robert upends everything with a startling announcement. He can communicate with the dead. Next slide. And here is the much anticipated new book by Daniel Clowes, which Fantagraphics will publish in October. Monica is a series of interconnected narratives that tell the life story of its title character. Clowes calls upon a lifetime of inspiration to create the most complex and personal graphic novel of his distinguished career. And next slide. The Waters is the new novel by Bonnie Jo Campbell, author of Once Upon a River. This doesn't come out until January, but Bonnie will be at ALA for several events, so I wanted to point it out to you. Set in small-town Western Michigan, The Waters follows 11-year-old Dorothy, nicknamed Donkey, who spends her days searching for truths in the lush landscape and in her math books, waiting for her wayward mother and wishing for a father, unaware that family secrets, passionate love, and violent men will flood through the swamp and upend her idyllic childhood. Next slide. So please reach out to me with any questions. I'll put our relevant links and our ALA schedule into the chat. And thank you all so much for listening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Loberg from Soho Press, where we have 3 imprints: Soho Crime for a variety of crime fiction, Soho Press for adult literary fiction, and Soho Teen for YA. I have a few wonderful titles, mostly from the fall season, that I'm going to share with you today. If you're going to be at ALA Annual, please visit us at booth 2618 for a variety of galley drops, item drops, and some author signings. With that, I will get started. On the next slide, please. Starting with Soho Crime in September, we have Soho's biggest book of 2023. The Secret Hours is a standalone thriller by Slow Horses author Mick Herron. If you're a fan of Soho Crime, you're probably familiar with Herron's Slough House novels about a group of disgraced British MI5 agents. It's a really smart, hilarious series full of thrills, sly political commentary, vivid characters, and a lot of tongue-in-cheek moments that make them really fun to read. And it was recently adapted into the show Slow Horses from Apple TV Plus, starring Gary Oldman and Kristen Scott Thomas, the 3rd season of which is coming out this fall. But back to The Secret Hours, this is a standalone espionage novel in the same vein as the Slough House novels. Begins in the present-day London when the British Secret Service is under investigation. When a top-secret buried case file comes to light, we're taken back to a classified operation in 1994 Berlin that ended in tragedy and scandal, and whose cover-up rewrote 30 years of MI5 history. The story that unfolds is a riveting and poignant thriller that delivers all the humor, action, and deft plotting that fans of Mick Herron love. If you've read the Slough House novels, you're absolutely going to want to pick this one up because it includes an epic reveal about some favorite series characters. So don't miss this one. And for those who haven't read Mick Herron before, The Secret Hours is a perfect introduction to his witty, laugh out loud, and incisive writing style in a tightly wound spy thriller perfect for fans of Le Carre and Martin Cruz Smith. Next, please. From our literary imprint in October, we have a new story collection from S.J. Sindhu called The Goth House Experiment. S.J. Sindhu is the author of the novels Marriage of a Thousand Lies and Blue-Skinned Gods. Both were finalists for the Lambda Literary Awards and the first won the Edmund White Award for debut fiction. Roxane Gay has called Sindhu's writing brilliant and described Blue-Skinned Gods with, quote, "The richness of this story will take hold of you and never let go," unquote. This is Sindhu's first collection and includes 6 stories, including a brand new one specifically for this book. They range from the absurd and fantastical to more serious themes. In one story, a young poet is haunted by the ghost of Oscar Wilde, and in another, a man having an affair gets caught up in larger currents of anti-Asian violence. As with all of Sindhu's writing, The Goth House Experiment is daring and subversive with an electric energy, humor, and queerness underlying the collection. This is great for fans of Carmen Maria Machado and Kelly Link, and it's a fun format at a smaller trim size of 7 by 5 inches, so it stands out a bit and it fits nicely in your hand. Next, please. Finally, I'd like to give you a quick peek of some new books in favorite Soho Crime series. In August, we have Naomi Hirahara's Evergreen, which is the follow-up to the Mary Higgins Clark and Lefty Award-winning novel Clark and Vision. Once again, Hirahara presents a poignant glimpse into Japanese American life after release from World War II concentration camps in a really well-written mystery. In September, we have Proud Sorrows, which is the 18th installment of James R. Benn's fan favorite Billy Boyle World War II mysteries. In October, we have the final book in the Being a Jane Austen mystery series, aptly named Jane and the Final Mystery. Stephanie Barron began the series that imagines Jane Austen as an amateur sleuth nearly 30 years ago, so this final book is a momentous occasion as we finally have to say goodbye to Jane, unfortunately. And last but not least, we have Deus Ex by Stephen Mac Jones. This is the 4th book in the award-winning August Snow series, featuring the lovable August Snow, an ex-cop and now private detective in Detroit. And for those of you going to ALA Annual, Stephanie Barron and Stephen Mac Jones will both be joining us for signings at our booth number 2618, so please do come say hi. And final slide, please. Here's my email again on the screen, and I'll put it in the chat. If you have any questions, all of these titles are available for request on NetGalley and Edelweiss, and we hope you'll come say hi to us at ALA. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Casterly from Blackstone Publishing. Thanks for taking the time today to hear about our upcoming books. First up, we have All Is Not Forgiven. All Is Not Forgiven is the debut crime novel by former homicide detective and investigation discovery star Joe Kenda. Joe's hit series Homicide Hunter and American Detective have been watched by almost 4 million viewers around the world, and his nonfiction book Killer Triggers showed that Joe has a huge fan base of readers as well. In this fictional story set in the 70s, a rookie detective named Joe Kenda and his partner travel across the country following leads while investigating the murder of a philanthropist. The Investigation Discovery TV network will be running ads in support of the book during a marathon of Joe's shows on July 4th. So we expect that to generate even more demand for the book, and it releases on July 25th. Next, we have The Trap. From award-winning and internationally best-selling crime writer Catherine Ryan Howard comes The Trap, an unsettling mystery inspired by a series of still unsolved disappearances in Ireland in the 90s, and one young woman who risks everything to catch a faceless killer. Catherine is a familiar name to thriller fans. Her novel, The Liar's Girl, was an Edgar Award nominee for Best Novel, and 56 Days was named a Best Thriller of 2021 by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Irish Times. She's received many other awards as well. And this new novel is coming out August 1st. Next, we have Stay Sane in an Insane World, How to Control the Controllables and Thrive. Author Greg Harden spent over 30 years building champions, athletes, NFL players, and Olympians. Now he offers powerful and practical advice to help anyone who wants to live their best life. Greg Harden's name may not be widely known, but he's a legend in the sports world. The book has a multitude of endorsements from major sports figures, as well as a foreword written by Tom Brady. In this book, Greg shares his wisdom and explains that champions aren't born, they're built. This is a one-of-a-kind book that will give you the indispensable lessons and tools necessary to create real change in your life. The audio is read by the author, which is perfect for this type of inspirational book, and Greg did a fantastic job. And it is coming out in all formats on August 1st. Next, we have The Detective Up Late by Adrian McKinty. This is the long-awaited next book in the Sean Duffy series. It's book 7. Detective Inspector Sean Duffy hopes that the 1990s are going to be better for Northern Ireland, but when a missing persons report captures his attention, can he survive one last case? McKinty is a New York Times and Edgar Award-winning author, and the audio for this one is being read by Gerard Doyle, who's a fan favorite and has gotten many accolades for the previous books, and it's releasing in all formats on August 8th. Next, we have Family Reigns. From Billy Bush, the heir to the Anheuser-Busch legacy, comes a riveting personal account of a family dynasty and the extraordinary experience of growing up in the house that beer built. The Bush name is widely recognized, and Billy is also known as the star of the MTV reality show Bush Family Brood. This is the first book published about the family by a Bush family member. The book will appeal to memoir readers and anyone interested in a true American success story about achievement and hardship, and it's releasing August 1st. Next, we have After That Night. This is an audio only for us. It's the 11th electrifying thriller featuring investigator Will Trent and medical examiner Sarah Linton from the New York Times and bestselling author Karen Slaughter. This is a hugely popular series in its own right, and it has found a whole new legion of fans because of the Will Trent series on ABC. We're very excited to bring it to audio. It's being read by Kathleen Early, and it's releasing August 22nd. Then we have just a little reminder to please submit library read votes for any of our titles that you enjoy. And finally, there is all of our contact information, so please reach out for galleys or if you have any questions. We'll be at ALA at booth 3022, so please stop by and say hello, and thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Croce, and I am the Senior Marketing Manager for Simon & Schuster, and I'll be presenting some of our upcoming Fall 23 titles. So let's dive in. Next. First up, Stephen King's Holly marks the triumphant return of beloved King character Holly Gibney. Readers have witnessed Holly's gradual transformation from a shy recluse in Mr. Mercedes to Bill Hodges' partner in Finders Keepers to a full-fledged, smart, and occasionally tough private detective in The Outsider. In King's new novel, Holly is on her own and up against a pair of unimaginably depraved and brilliantly disguised adversaries. From one of the most singularly brilliant and beloved writers of her generation, Let Us Descend by Jesmond Ward is a reimagining of American slavery, searching, harrowing, and replete with transcendent love, while Ward leads readers through the descent of Black American grief and joy. Her fourth novel is ultimately a story of rebirth and reclamation. Next. Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll proposes a new narrative inspired by evidence that's been glossed over for decades in favor of more salacious headlines, that the so-called brilliant and charismatic serial killer from Seattle was far more average than the countless books, movies, and primetime specials have led us to believe, and that it was the women whose lives he cut short who were the exceptional ones. Nancy Juyeon Kim, the New York Times bestselling author of The Last Story of Mina Lee, returns with What We Kept to Ourselves, a riveting page-turner that follows the fractured Kim family, who's mourning their missing monarch, Sonny. Things go from bad to worse when a dead stranger turns up in their backyard. And when it's discovered that he's carrying a letter to Sonny, it reveals secrets that have been brewing for decades with current ramifications for them all. And Naomi Alderman, the best-selling author of The Power, delivers The Future, a dazzling tour de force where Martha, who grew up in a cult and once worked for a social media mogul, and Lai Zhen, a famous internet survivalist, plot a daring heist to save the world from the tech giants whose greed threatens life as we know it. Next. For Mona Awad, the critically acclaimed author of Bunny, comes Rouge, a horror-tinted gothic fairy tale about a lonely dress shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path into the pursuit of youth and beauty. Will she escape her mother's fate? And in Death Valley by Melissa Broder, a woman flees to the California high desert to escape family tragedies. Out on the sun-scorched trail, the woman encounters a towering cactus with a gash through its side that beckons like a door. So she goes through it. What awaits her inside this mystical succulent sets her on a journey at once desolate and rich, hilarious and poignant. Next. With echoes of Educated and Born a Crime, How to Say Babylon by Safia Sinclair is the stunning story of the author's struggle to break free of her rigid Rastafarian upbringing, ruled by her father's strict patriarchal views and repressive control for childhood, to find her own voice as a woman and poet. In the Form of a Question by Amy Schneider is an inspirational and bold memoir from the most successful woman to ever compete on Jeopardy, and an exploration of what it means to ask questions of the world and of yourself. And from Stephanie Land, the New York Times bestselling author who inspired the hit Netflix series Made Comes Class, a gripping memoir about college, motherhood, poverty, and life after Made. Next. In the Long Game by Elena Armis, when soccer exec Adeline Reyes goes viral for an altercation with the team's mascot, she's sent to middle of nowhere, North Carolina, where she's tasked with turning around the struggling local soccer team. There she meets Cameron Caldani, a mysterious goalkeeping prodigy who's the perfect candidate to help Adeline, except he's dead set on running her out of town, perfect for anyone who is missing Ted Lasso. And in Wildfire by Hannah Grace, the follow-up to Icebreaker, follows Russ and Aurora, who, after a sizzling one-night stand, unexpectedly reconnect at the summer camp where they are both counselors. They have an undeniable chemistry, but must adhere to a no fraternizing rule amongst the staff. Will they learn to peacefully coexist, or did their one-night stand start a fire that they can't put out? Next. And lastly, from Walter Isaacson, who's written critically acclaimed biographies on Jennifer Doudna, Leonardo da Vinci, Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin, and Einstein, is back with Elon Musk, a book on the terminally online man and billionaire. For 2 years, Isaacson shadowed Musk and spent hours interviewing him, his friends, family, and coworkers, and adversaries. The result is a revealing inside story. This is perfect for book clubs who love to tackle controversial topics. Next. That is all for me. Please visit simonandschuster.net/library so you can browse all of our resources, including the 3 featured here. I'll put that in the chat along with our ALA schedule and info. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. I'm Katie Vaughn, the Assistant Marketing Manager at Bloomsbury US, and I'm excited to talk to you all about our upcoming titles. I will drop our Google form link in the chat so you can easily find these books and request review copies, but for now, we will jump right into the first slide. In July, we have Nothing Special, a coming-of-age novel about a teenage girl working as a typist in Andy Warhol's factory in 1960s New York during the counterculture movement. Sally Rooney calls author Nicole Flattery bold, irreverent, and agonizingly funny, and this exploration of young female friendship, sexuality, identity, and art is perfect for fans of authors like Ottessa Moshfegh and Mary Gaitskill. Also in July, we have How to Say Goodbye, which is a beautiful illustrated guide to saying goodbye from New York Times bestselling artist Wendy McNaughton. It shares wisdom from hospice caregivers about how to be, when to help, and what to say when spending final moments with someone. Then in August, we have Walk the Darkness Down, which is a portrait of love in the margins of 21st century America. It follows a couple who have kept their lives as separate and their pain as hidden as much as possible until tangled friendships and unexpected deaths force them to recognize they can no longer face their struggles alone. Then also in August, we have Stillborn, which has been shortlisted for this year's International Booker Prize. It's a profound novel about two close friends in their mid-30s who make opposite choices about motherhood and must reckon with the resulting emotional complexities. Then on the next slide, we have Every Drop is a Man's Nightmare by Japanese and Native Hawaiian author Megan Kamale Kakimoto. This incredible debut collection, which I personally cannot stop thinking about, is a blazing exploration of the beauty and horror of the female body in a Hawaii where unruly sexuality and generational memory overflow the postcard image of paradise and the boundaries of the real. It's perfect for fans of surreal short stories and authors like Carmen Maria Machado and Samantha Schweblin, and PW's Starred Review calls it a powerful exploration of gender, class, race, colonialism, and domestic violence, while calling Megan a writer to watch. And the Library Reads deadline for this one is coming up on July 1st. Then on the next slide, we have I Must Be Dreaming, the hilarious new graphic narrative from #1 New York Times bestselling, award-winning New Yorker cartoonist Roz Chast, exploring all things dream-related. Filled with cartoon renderings of Roz's own dreams, sorted into sections like celebrity dreams, nightmares, food dreams, body horror, and more, I Must Be Dreaming is illuminating, funny, and often profound, not to mention that Alison Bechdel says it reduced her repeatedly to spasms of laugh crying. Then on the following slide, we have The House of Doris by Booker shortlisted author Tan Tuan Eng. It's a spellbinding historical novel based on famed writer Somerset Maugham's time in Malaysia, exploring closeted homosexuality, the double standards around the sexual liberties of women, and the yoke of colonialism in East Asia. It's a brilliantly plotted and layered story filled with unforgettable characters. And as author Jonathan Lee says, Tan Tuan Eng teaches us a crucial lesson: never trust a writer. And then finally, on the next slide, we have all of these fantastic titles on deck as well. This is Wildfire, is a field guide that includes essential history and science, actions you can take to protect your home, and guiding principles for life in an increasingly fiery future, ever more relevant in light of recent events. The End of Eden is an exploration of climate change from the perspective of wild species and natural ecosystems, galvanizing us to act in defense of the natural world before it's too late. Comfort and Joy is a cookbook filled with veg-centric recipes for home cooks that guarantees that the vegetarian option will never again be relegated to second choice. The Globe Makers is a beautifully illustrated story of our globe and the globes it's inspired, told from inside the workshop of one of the world's last globe makers. And finally, How to Be Multiple uses the curious, wondrous, and uncanny experience of being a twin as a lens for reconsidering our place in the world, featuring illustrations by the author's own identical twin. And finally, on the last slide, that is it for us. Thank you so much for listening and being here today. Please do take a look at the Google form in the chat. I'll drop it again with all of our information. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, I'm Margaret Coffey from Sourcebook. Next slide, please. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest for up-to-date information, galleys, free resources. Our titles are available as e-galleys on NetGalley and Edelweiss, but please feel free to email me with any questions. Next slide. I hope you've had a chance to read some of my recent favorites. And next slide, now on to some of my upcoming new titles. With a touch of modern Rosemary's Baby, Delicate Condition is an upmarket thriller that follows indie actress Anna Alcott, who's convinced a sinister figure is going to great lengths to make sure her pregnancy never happens, while the men in her life refuse to believe a word she says. Oh, big surprise, right? And her symptoms become even more harrowing. She can't help but wonder what exactly she's carrying inside of her, and why no one will listen when she says something is horribly, painfully wrong. This is Danielle Valentine's first adult book. She's written YA, such as The Merciless and Survive the Night, as Danielle Vega. Next slide. Before there was Romeo and Juliet, there was Fair Rosalind, a Shakespearean untelling from best-selling author Natasha Solomons. The first time Romeo Montague sees young Rosalind Capulet, he falls instantly in love. Soon, though, Rosalind begins to doubt all that Romeo has told her. She breaks off the match, only for Romeo's gaze to turn towards her cousin, 13-year-old Juliet. Gradually, Rosalind realizes that it's not only Juliet's reputation at stake, but her life. With only hours remaining before Rosalind is banished behind nunnery walls, will she be able to save Juliet from her Romeo? Or can this story only ever end one way? Next slide. From the critically acclaimed author of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife and The Last Housewife comes Midnight is the Darkest Hour, a gothic Southern thriller about a killer haunting a small Louisiana town where two outcasts, the preacher's daughter and the boy from the wrong side of the tracks, hold the key to uncovering the truth about multiple murders. They're true blood without the supernatural. And let me tell you, this book is so good. Next slide. And now on to our Poison Pen Press mystery line. Next slide. From Frida McFadden, the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of The Housemaid, comes her new book for Source Books. Two women, an office filled with secrets, one terrible crime that can't be taken back. This tense, unputdownable thriller explores the dark ways the past can echo through the present with deadly consequences. Dawn's shift is a little strange. Very standoffish, very precise. At least that's what everyone thinks at the nutritional supplement company where she works as an accountant. But when she doesn't show up one morning at exactly 8:45 a.m., her coworker Natalie, the beautiful, popular top sales rep, is surprised. Then she receives an unsettling call that changes everything. Dawn was being targeted by someone close, and now Natalie is caught in a twisted game of cat and mouse. We will be releasing Frida's self-published backlist titles, The Locked Door, Never Lie, and The Inmate later this year. Next slide. Up for a little happily ever after. Next slide. Alexis Hall's boyfriend material universe expands with 10 Things That Never Happened, a hilarious LGBTQIA+ rom-com about identity, mistaken first impressions, and a serious case of faux amnesia. Sam Mecker may be sunshine personified, but a cheerful disposition is no match for the fierce scowls Jonathan Forrest throws his way. Desperate to avoid a confrontation with the surly git, Sam panics, lies, and pretends not to remember Jonathan, or anything else for that matter, pulling the two of them into a madcap adventure of second first impressions that'll defy everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. Next slide. And last, onto our Bloom Books imprint for a little sizzle and spice. Next slide. #1 New York Times bestselling author Lucy Score returns to Knockemout, Virginia in The Things We Left Behind. Lucian Rollins is a lean, mean, vengeance-seeking mogul. Sloane Walton is a Spitfire librarian determined to carry on her father's quest for justice. Bonded by an old, dark secret from the past and the dislike they now share for each other, Sloane trusts Lucian about as far as she can throw his designer-suited body. But then one night changes everything, and Lucian isn't about to let Sloane get away again. Next slide. Look for all these wonderful Bloom titles for your collections. And last slide. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you again to Emily and Grace for organizing and running this webinar. Reach out if you've got any questions, and we'll see you at ALA. Have a good afternoon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Celia Madison. I'm the new library marketing manager here at Ingram, and I am thrilled to be presenting 4 wonderful titles from our independent publishers today. Next slide, please. This is my first novel, Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca. This is a chilling New England horror novel from Clash Books, and it will be out just next week. After a series of unsolved disappearances in an idyllic Connecticut town, a grieving widow is led into a spiral of dark magic and ritual. As the local police investigates the strangeness afoot, LaRocca reveals the town's not-so-hidden underbelly of bigotry and hatred. This is a social and supernatural horror in the tradition of Paul Tremblay and Clive Barker. It comes on the heels of LaRocca's viral hit, Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, which is a snap sensation on Book Talk, I'm sure you all remember. And I can see history repeating itself for this queer, witchy, spooky horror novel. Everything the Darkness Eats has already received great coverage, including a star from Library Journal and a rave from the New York Times, which praised LaRocca's richly characterized and diverse cast, called the novel Indiana Jones Meets Hellraiser, and described LaRocca's writing as lush as a Baroque painting. Next slide, please. The next title I have is the debut memoir, Everything, Nothing, Someone by Alice Carriere from Spiegel and Grau. Alice grows up as the precocious daughter of a successful artist and actor who routinely entertained dinner guests like Joan Didion and Julia Roberts. She grows up in a completely unsupervised bohemian paradise in Greenwich Village, a lifestyle defined by what she describes as chronic extravagance. Alice begins self-harming in elementary school and enters a cycle of anxiety, depression, and self-destruction that will culminate in a teenage diagnosis of dissociative disorder and a subsequent barrage of psychiatric care of varying helpfulness. But this is not a simple trauma memoir. Alice's writing is sly and tenacious and wholly likable, and her growth as an adult learning to forgive herself and her parents is a powerful testament to the importance of self-knowledge. This is a title that will appeal to fans of Ada Calhoun's Also a Poet, which dealt with similar ideas. It's an honest portrait of 90s girlhood angst and vulnerability that will make you think of My So-Called Life and the Virgin Suicides, and it will definitely tap into this current trend of curiosity for the pre-web era. Next slide. Next, I have a novel from J. Vanessa Lyon. This is from Grove's new imprint, Roxane Gay Books. Lush Lives is a juicy, queer, interracial love story set in the glamorously dysfunctional world of fine art. In it, Glory is an artist who inherits her aunt's aging Harlem brownstone, which we think would be a dream come true. But this brownstone actually comes with a very long list of responsibilities that feel impossible to manage until Glory meets the delightfully sharp Parky DeGroot, a queer art appraiser who teams up with Glory to uncover the secrets of this mysterious brownstone. As their relationships and ambitions deepen, they run into a swirl of secrecy and complications. Lyon is an art historian, at Bennington, and her depiction of the art world is both precisely and hilariously drawn. This is a playful, sexy, thoughtful, and above all, literary novel that will delight regular romance readers and seduce newcomers to the genre. Think of your favorite romance novelists like Camille Perry or Jasmine Guillory. It puts a frothy spin on the best rom-com tropes like workplace rivalries, old money drama, and of course, a big mysterious house. Next slide. Finally, I'll mention Elizabeth Rush's follow-up to her Pulitzer-nominated Rising from Milkwood Editions, The Quickening, Creation and Community at the Ends of the Earth. In The Quickening, Rush describes joining a 2019 scientific expedition to an unstudied Antarctic glacier to chart the effects of climate change. Since Rising, Rush has become a mother, a theme that appears frequently in The Quickening as she explores her choice to have a child in a time defined by near catastrophe. What I love about Rush is her appealing sense of wonder. I think a lot of us can feel overwhelmed when we think about climate change, but Rush does not have a doomsday lens. Instead, she tells an intimate story about human experience and vulnerability. This is a fascinating humanist portrait of a group of scientists, a remarkable part of the world, and a better future that is still within our reach. I'm comparing it to not just beloved nature writers like Terry Tempest Williams or Bill McKibben, but also genre agnostic essayists like Rebecca Solnit and even Maggie Nelson. Next slide. So these are my 4 wonderful titles. Thank you all so much for listening, and please feel free to reach out if you have questions or would like a galley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda with Macmillan. Thank you so much for tuning in today. These are all the places you can find us on the internet. Definitely check us out for more book information and other fun shenanigans. On to the books. My first book today is One Blood by Deneen Milner. Homegoing meets the Mothers, where 3 women are tied together by blood, love, and family secrets. Potent, poetic, powerful, told with deep love, and spanning from the Great Migration to the civil unrest of the early 2000s. Deneen Milner's beautifully wrought novel explores 3 women's intimate struggle with generational trauma and healing. Next is Amazing Grace Adams by Fran Littlewood. This debut is the touching and unforgettable story of an invisible woman pushed to the brink and finally pushing back. Grace Adams is stuck in traffic on her daughter's birthday, and she is completely losing it. She steps out of her car and leaves it in the middle of the road, setting off across London on a mission to win back her estranged 16-year-old daughter. This combines the humor of Jan Moriarty with the poignancy of Jojo Moyes, yet with a voice uniquely her own. Next is Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. The author of The Library Reads Pick Mistakes Were Made is back with the best sports romance you will ever read. And that is a bold claim, I know, but I absolutely loved it. It's a sapphic rivals to lovers rom-com where 2 soccer teammates are at odds before falling in love as their team gears up for the World Cup. The perfect blend of funny and steamy and chock full of beloved tropes like teammates to lovers. What is this feeling so sudden and new? And sexual tension via hair braiding, alongside ADHD rep, an amazing cast of side characters, and the actual Women's World Cup coming up later this summer. This is sure to be a winner. Next is Devil Makes Three by Ben Fountain. This is political fiction at its best from the award-winning author of Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, taking place in 1991 Haiti with the rise of brutal military dictatorship after a violent coup d'etat. An American expat stumbles through a cascade of ill-fated incidents involving legendary shipwrecks, arms trafficking rings masquerading as a U.S. government humanitarian aid office, CIA officers, and more. Working through obstacle after obstacle, Devil Makes Three is a propulsive story about greed, power, and American complicity, and a look at our times with more clarity than many pieces of nonfiction these days. Next is The Porcelain Maker by Sarah Freethy. In this emotionally wrenching love story, a brilliant and talented Jewish architect falls in love with a beautiful and charismatic German artist, and it becomes her mission to save him when he is imprisoned in Dachau. Over 60 years later, her daughter is on a journey to discover the identity of her father, the father that her mother kept secret her whole life. The writing here is just so lyrical and evocative, you won't believe it's the author's debut. Plus, it's based on a real subcamp of Dachau. Next is Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord by Celeste Connolly. Bridgerton meets Agatha Christie, meets Bringing Down the Duke in this dazzling first entry in a terrific new Regency-era cozy series with a feminist spin. A lady hears rumors that a longtime friend has died of melancholia while in the care of a questionable physician and vows to use her status to dig deeper. Described as a steamier than most cozies romance, this is a historical mystery with a truly modern feel. Next is Calamity by Constance Fay. This is a debut that is equal parts steamy interstellar romance and sci-fi adventure, perfect for fans of Firefly and Alona Andrews. A spaceship captain is hired for a scouting mission on a backwater desert planet, but is saddled with the son of a terrifying elite family who hired them, and sparks fly as they encounter volcanic eruptions, secret cultists, and deadly galactic fighters. With just the right level of sci-fi elements, great banter, great action, and steamy romance, I absolutely loved this first book in a new series. Next is A True Account by Catherine Ho. A woman takes to the seas at the end of the golden age of piracy. Then, in 1930, a professor is putting together her life story and finds a centuries-old mystery that she is determined to solve. Together, these dual timelines make up the unforgettable story of two women in different worlds, both shattering the rules of their own society and daring to risk everything to go out on their own account. This will be great for fans of Anna North's Outlawed, The Lost Apothecary, and The Starless Sea. And finally, for me, is Here in the Dark by Alexis Solosky. This will be great for fans of Alice Feeney and Christine Mangan. It follows an actress turned theater critic who grants an interview that uncovers dark secrets. When she later learns that her interviewer has been killed and she was the last one to see him alive, she takes it upon herself to investigate the crime, leading her to discover that the boundaries between theater and the real world are more tenuous and more dangerous than she could have believed. And the next slide, that is it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please reach out if you have any questions or any requests, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, I'm Annie Mazes. I am with Hachette Book Group, and I'm representing titles that come from our Workman Publishing imprint. That's my email address. Please reach out if you have any questions or if you want to request anything. We are going to be in booth 3116 at ALA. If you want to stop by and say hello if you're attending, we'd love to see you. Next slide, please. Why can't you see me?
It's just a black screen. I don't know. Oh, there we go.
I'm good at technology, you guys. 3.5 million years into this process. Thank you for letting me know, Emily. And thank you for arranging this. First up, we have Gardening Can Be Murder by Marta McDowell. With their deadly plants, razor-sharp shears, shady corners, and ready-made burial sites, gardens make an ideal scene for the perfect murder. Gardening Can Be Murder is the first book to explore the mystery genre's many surprising horticultural connections. Meet plant-obsessed detectives and spooky groundskeepers, suspects witness toxic teas served in foul play, and tour the gardens, both real and imaginary, that have been the settings for fiction's ghastliest misdeeds. Next up is Raising a Kid Who Can. 3 mental health professionals cut through the parenting advice noise with this accessible, easy to skim book filled with actionable strategies and tips to help parents focus only on what's truly essential and help build their children's neurobiological capacity to thrive where they are planted in good times and bad. Next, we had The Museum of Failures by Thridi Umrigar, the beloved author of Reese's Book Club Pick Honor. This is for readers of Sankofa by Chibundu Onuzo or Fault Lines by Emily Atami. It's about secrets and family and a reminder that forgiveness comes from realizing that the people we love are usually trying to do their best in the most difficult situations. Next, hi Jennifer. Distant Sons is by the New York Times bestselling author of Descent and the Current. This is an absorbing new work of literary suspense about two young working men who forge a friendship despite secrets in their past and whose actions ignite the passions and violence of a small Wisconsin town still haunted by the unsolved disappearance of three boys in the 1970s. This is for fans of Peter Heller, Liz Moore, or Cormac McCarthy. Next is It's Not You, It's Capitalism. This is a biting, brilliant, often hilarious guide to socialism for budding anti-capitalists who know it's time to dump their toxic ex-capitalism and try something finer. Journalist Malaika Jabali debunks myths, centers forgotten socialists of color who have shaped our world, and shows that socialism is not all Marx and Bernie bros. And finally, we have A Grandmother Begins the Story, which I absolutely adore and love. And I know you're not supposed to play favorites, but I'm playing favorites hard. This is a debut novel by award-winning author Michelle Porter. This is her debut fiction. It's an enchanting and original story of the desire for healing and the power of familial bonds across 5 generations of Métis women and the land and the bison that surround them. This book is told from multiple perspectives, including a bison. So pay attention to who is telling that part of their story, but it is beautifully written. It's connected. The characters are just so developed. I think it'll be great for book clubs and can start conversations about generational trauma and healing. It's a really special book. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello?
We can see you.
Oh, you can? Sorry,
Yeah.
I can't
No,
see
you're fine.
myself. Hi, I'm Deb Seeger from Grove Atlantic. I'm the publicity director there. Thank you all for coming. And Celia, thank you for the nice shout out for Lush Lives. There are only so many books I could talk about, so I'm glad you fit that one in. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of our fall highlights. Starting with Donna Leon, next slide. Starting with Donna Leon's Wandering Through Life. Donna Leon, known for her beloved New York Times bestselling Commissario Guido Bernetti mystery series, takes readers inside her curious life story. A series of vignettes reflecting her love of Italy, the people, the food, her love of music, especially opera and Handel's music, and the unintended destinations where she found herself up till now, as she's in her 80th year, and reflects on the challenges and pleasures of aging. This is Donna like we have never seen before. Next slide. Known for his mysteries, Walter Mosley has also written speculative fiction. In Touched, intergalactic visions, deadly threats, explosive standoffs between mostly good and completely evil converge. Think Octavia Butler meets Jeff Vandermeer meets Gordon Peele. The novel follows Martin, who just woke up one morning after what feels like a centuries-long sleep with 2 new innate pieces of knowledge. Humanity is a virus destined to destroy all existence, and he is the cure. Martin must defend his family against pure evil, Tror Waxman, the white-haired embodiment of death who seeks to destroy all life with his fatal touch. Martin must convince his family of the danger and get them to engage with him in a battle beyond all imagining. Touched brilliantly imagines the way in which human life and technological innovations threaten to existence. Can't speak. Next slide. Viet Thanh Nguyen is an influential voice on the topics of politics, immigration, imperialism, and American culture. His Pulitzer Prize-winning debut novel, The Sympathizer, will soon be an HBO Max limited series. And if you haven't seen the trailer, I urge you to go check it out. It's going to be an incredible series. Now he delivers his most personal work yet, A Man of Two Faces, a memoir, a history, a memorial. He rewinds the films of his own life, and as he looks at his time when he comes to America at age 4 and being separated by his family for 2 years. He also explores his life as a teenager as he's reading, begins to start reading about the war in Vietnam, the novels, watching the movies, and asks, how can he be both an American and a Vietnamese, both the killer and the person being killed? When he learns about an adopted sister who has stayed back in Vietnam, he grows to understand just how much his parents have left behind. And as his parents age, he worries increasingly about the comfort and care and realizes that some of their older wounds are reopening. Profound in its emotion and brilliant in its thinking about cultural power, A Man of Two Faces explores the necessity of both forgetting and memory. Next slide. Paul Auster returns with his 18th novel and his first since his Booker Prize short story novel, 4321. Baumgartner opens with a scorched pot of water with which Cy Baumgartner, noted author and soon-to-be retired philosophy professor, has forgotten on the stove. What follows is a taut yet expansive novel of love, memory, and grief. Rich with compassion, wit, Auster's eyes for beauty in the smallest, most transient moments of ordinary life. Baumgartner asks, why do we remember certain moments and forget others? And lastly, the third in the Roxane Gay Books inaugural list, Hot Springs Drive, is a twisty literary page turner that will appeal to readers of Celeste Ning and Mary Gaskell. Jackie Neesum's best friend is dead, and everyone knows who killed her. Jackie, an emotional eater and mother who has finally lost the weight she long yearned to be free of, in her new body, free of. In her new body, leaving her old self behind proves harder than she ever imagined. Her only salve is her best friend, Teresa, whose seemingly perfect life she desperately covets. The two navigate the trials of motherhood side by side. Their bond is tight, but it's not tight enough for Jackie to steal Teresa's husband. Hot Springs Drive is a dark, heart-pounding exploration of one woman's deepest desires and the lives she will destroy to satisfy them. I love this book, and I hope that you'll vote for it for Library Reads. Come visit us at ALA, and we're at booth 3029E. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm Ivy Weir. I am newly rejoined to the Quirk Books marketing and publicity team, so I look forward to reconnecting with some of you and getting to meet some of you for the first time. Next slide, please. I have so many books today. I'm going to blitz through them, so please check out that Edelweiss catalog that they're putting in the chat. I love that I get to kick off with Goblin Mode, How to Get Cozy, Embrace Imperfection, and Thrive in the Muck. You may recall that Oxford's word of the year for 2022 was Goblin Mode, and this handy guide helps you embody the cozy joyfulness of the goblin lifestyle. If some of the more sparse lifestyle methods are not working for you, maybe goblin maximalism is more your thing. Next slide, please. Next up, I'm excited to share a new horror offering for fans of authors like Camilla Sten or filmmakers like David Lynch, a smart, ambitious, and consuming title from James Kennedy, Bride of the Tornado. A young woman has to figure out how to escape the plague of tornadoes that come for her small Midwestern town every generation. I can tell you that this twisty and chilling read is not likely to be like any other novel you read this year. And you can see James at ALA on Sunday at the It's a Mystery panel. Next slide, please. Speaking of horror, if we have any Clay McLeod Chapman fans in the audience, his latest, What Kind of Mother, will be arriving this September. The Southern Gothic takes Nicholas Sparks and turns it terrifying, as a palm reader and single mom is swept up in a cold case for a missing child. And Clay's last novel, Ghost Eaters, is now available in paperback, And if you're a fan of the fungal horror trend or a sporer, definitely pick this one up. Next slide, please. So now for something a little less scary, well, maybe scary in a different way because it's about dating. Sober lifestyle expert Tawny Laura helps the sober-ish, or sober-curious navigate the relationship and dating landscape in Dry Humping, a guide to dating, relating, and hooking up without the booze. Not drinking alcohol can make you feel excluded from a lot of social events and interactions, and Tawny's fun and judgment-free guide can help you navigate a boozeless dating life without any awkwardness. Next slide, please. Do you believe in aliens? Mark Hartzman, author of The Big Book of Mars and Chasing Ghosts, explores our fascination with UFOs and extraterrestrials in the info-packed We Are Not Alone, which is full of history, facts, and interviews with prominent figures in UFO research. Next slide, please. Okay, so now it's time for one of my favorite book titles to actually say, when in doubt, play dead. You might already know this author, or maybe her possum friends. Allie is the creator of the viral It's Me Sesame Instagram account. And in her latest book, she brings us wisdom from an unexpected source, possum. This sweet and inspiring read gives timeless advice with an opossum flair. It's positivity for anyone who can relate to the sentiment, live, laugh, scream. Next slide, please. The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook has been giving you the tools to survive some of life's most dangerous scenarios for more than 20 years. But what about the ultimate worst case scenario? The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook, Apocalypse, combines real survival advice with fun explorations of scenarios like a robot uprising or a zombie horde. We're all prone to doom scrolling these days, and this unique combo of practical advice and genuine laughs might be just what we need to alleviate that anxiety. Next slide, please. Your crush on Mr. Darcy might be about to get a lot more complicated. English literature professor Rachel Feder presents a unique spin on Jane Austen's most famous romantic hero, exploring the theory that actually he's kind of a jerk. Unpacking the trope that a cruel or aloof love interest will become sweet and doting with the right woman's love, this fun and feminist pop culture deep dive touches on everything from Twilight to Lord Byron. Next slide, please. If you're, like me, are bereft at the conclusion of the latest season of Showtime's Yellow Jackets, make sure to mark your calendar for January when Jenny Kiefer's This Wretched Valley publishes. 4 climbers head into the Kentucky wilderness, and 7 months later, 3 mangled bodies are discovered. Were these accidents or something more horrifying? Definitely give this one to fans of ALMA or anyone fascinated by the Dyatlov Pass incident, which inspired the book. Next slide, please. So I'll conclude with a shout out to one of our YA titles that has plenty of crossover appeal for adults. Stars Hide Your Fires brings the wit and twists of Knives Out to a space opera setting with queer romance and a timely social commentary on inequality. If you have readers that loved the Locked Tomb series, this will be right up their alley. Okay, so last slide. My final slide. Thanks so much for listening today. Feel free to reach out to me with questions about any of these titles, and you can find DRCs of these and our children's titles on NetGalley or Edelweiss.
All right, thank you everybody so much. Thank you to all of our presenters and to everybody who stuck around and watched all of our presenters talk about all of their amazing books. We hope to see you all at ALA next week. All right, thank you all so much. Have a great day. Bye.